Good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to Digital Transformation Acceleration Forum's second virtual seminar on enabling the metaverse, digital ID, fintech, and security in the digital ecosystem. Now that was a mouthful, but it's great to see you guys, everyone joining this virtual seminar. But just before we start, I'd like to invite our head of APAC, Julian Gorman, just to welcome you to this seminar. Julian, over to you.
Thanks, Johnny. Good afternoon. A very warm welcome to all of you this exciting webinar, and thank you to the speakers and guests for joining today. I'd also like to thank John Capp and the team at Born to Global for their support of DXAF as its innovation partner. But I suppose it's been an amazing how much a difference a year can make for what's capturing the attention of the public and industry. But despite the hype of the metaverse fading, from 12 months ago, the concept where people can interact, create, and explore in ways we've never experienced through digital is as strong as ever, I think. And the metaverse vision promises to reshape the way we live, work, and play. However, to fully realize that potential, there are a number of critical pillars we must address, and that's what I think today's webinar is really about: exploring how, where some of the core strengths of MNOs and how they play a native role in the metaverse. Interestingly, at the GSMA, we've been producing the APAC Digital Society report for 7 years now. And over the years, we've developed a framework for a digital society, a framework to help measure the transition from physical to digital of our society. And the themes of today's webinar are also the basic building blocks that we use in that framework. But in that report, the framework is presented really as the destination. And in that report, we measure progress of nations every year of how they're moving towards that destination of a digital society. But it was really last year when the metaverse really sort of came to everyone's attention, or strongly across general public, that we introduced the concept of the digital nation, where transformation is not the destination, but actually the next step in the journey of our digital lives and our digital economy. And today, I believe the discussion of how we enable the metaverse with identity, fintech, and security is part of that journey to enabling a world of inclusive and safe future digital nations. So I know Johnny has curated an agenda today to guide us on this journey, and we'll have a privilege of hearing from a lot of leading experts in the fields. As always, I encourage everyone to actively participate in the discussions, ask questions, share your thoughts, because it's important that we apply our collective expertise to develop a deeper understanding of the metaverse's potential and to guide us as an industry and also ecosystem towards building a more inclusive, secure, I think, and prosperous future. So thank you, Johnny, and back to you.
Great, fantastic. Thanks very much, Julian. All right, thanks for that, the kind words. Now, just before we begin, just to let you know, if you have questions, please use the chat box in the platform to ask questions, and my colleague Kevin Henry will try to accommodate as many as possible. If it takes time, we will collate those questions, do the research, and come back to you as well. Second thing, this webinar is being recorded. So if you'd like to watch it and share it with others, please do so. It's also being recorded because today is also a holiday in many countries. And so many of the members that I wanted to actually attend from, say, Indonesia and Korea and so on, had to have requested some this recording to be made. So it will be available after the session. Now, just before we begin, the title of this virtual seminar says that it's going to be about the metaverse. But the metaverse, as Julian mentioned, represents a vision of a fully immersive and interconnected digital world that goes beyond traditional online platform as we know it. And the key goal is to create a seamless and immersive experience that transcends individual devices and platforms, enabling users to really engage in social interactions, commerce, entertainment, education, and so forth. And so, hence the development of the metaverse requires the true establishment of a really robust digital ecosystem. And this ecosystem, encompasses, various stakeholders, including MNOs, such as, Telkom Digi, such as NTT Docomo, such as, KT, or over the top players and technology companies and other digital ecosystem players like non-MNO, like a Sandbox we have invited to today, content creators, developers, users, and so forth. So collaboration among these entities is really crucial to creating a diverse and vibrant, commercially sustainable digital landscape supported by three important enabling pillars. And these pillars are being digital identity, fintech, and security. The overall importance of these three pillars in enabling the metaverse, cannot be overstated. And this is because the technological innovations are essential for creating a truly trusted environment to support seamless and secure user experience and commercially sustainable metaverse and the digital ecosystem. So, this virtual seminar will begin by sharing the latest insight on the current status of the metaverse, and then delve into the important role these three pillars play through presentations and panel discussions from leading digital industry ecosystem players. Now, all the presenters' bio and photos have been shared with you, so please refer to that document. And with that said, kicking off this seminar, I'd like to invite my friend and colleague, Pablo Iacopino from GSMA Intelligence to really set this background scene for this seminar by sharing GSMA's presentation on shaping the metaverse, building blocks, industry opportunities, and consumer expectations. Now, Pablo, he's the head of industry research and commercial content at GSMA Intelligence, based in London. So it's pretty early for him. So Pablo, over to you.
Thank you, Johnny. Hello, everyone. Glad to connect with all of you. Greetings from London. I'm going to share my screen. Give me just 1 second. Okay, hope everyone can see my screen. So over the next 15 minutes, we will be looking together at some of the important trends that are shaping the metaverse, including consumer expectations. What is that consumers expect from the metaverse, and also the opportunity for the industry. We are still in the early days of the metaverse. We see progress across a range of activities, but it's fair to say that the metaverse will develop over the next 10 years or so in 3 main waves. 2021, 2024 is about laying the foundation for the metaverse. And this includes investments in foundational capabilities, including digital ID, fintech, security, R&D. Partnerships, as Johnny said, are very, very important to drive momentum, work on standards. And it's important to say that we have seen already some early commercialization of metaverse solutions. Then when we look at the second wave, 2025, 2030 is about developing a wider ecosystem. This means new use cases, new players entering the ecosystem, a greater integration between all the platforms. And then 2030 and beyond is about scaling the metaverse, which means scaling metaverse adoption beyond early adopters, new business models, new ways to monetize the metaverse, a new work on optimizing tech integration across all the platforms. So this is how we see the evolution of the metaverse over the next 10 years or so. In the current stage of developments, metaverse players are focusing on 5 main areas. And I usually call these areas as the 5 main building blocks that are needed for the metaverse to develop. These 5 building blocks are networks and platforms, hardware, virtual elements, which includes digital ID, digital assets, avatars, content and services, and this is content and services for consumers, for enterprises, as well as for governments. And then other technologies, the use of blockchain, artificial intelligence, fintech, security, to build the metaverse. Now, obviously, there is a growing number of ecosystem players making progress across these 5 areas. Some of them are focusing on specific segments. Some of them are taking an horizontal approach, working on different elements of these 5 building blocks. Some examples include Microsoft, Meta, Qualcomm, NVIDIA, all the big tech companies. In terms of use cases, we already see some progress across a variety of vertical sectors. We typically split the metaverse into consumer metaverse and enterprise metaverse. And in this slide, we can see a range of examples of services that are leveraging metaverse capabilities. Obviously, gaming, we all know about gaming, is a foundational use case for the metaverse. But metaverse is not only gaming. We see examples in media and entertainment, retail and e-commerce, which I think is an interesting area with solutions providing virtual shopping experiences, tourism and travel. And then on the enterprise side of things, we see early applications of the metaverse for meeting and collaboration, education and training, which I think is an interesting area as well, manufacturing, with digital twins, and also public sector. And for each of these areas, there are already examples of companies commercializing services or working in order to commercialize services in the future. Let's now focus on consumers. We did a consumer survey across major markets around the world, asking a range of questions. And we included some questions about the metaverse. So really to understand what's the consumer awareness of the metaverse and what consumers expect from the metaverse. So consumer awareness of the metaverse is already high. Across the 8 countries, on average, 66% of consumers are aware of the metaverse. They know what the metaverse is. They have heard of the metaverse. South Korea is leading the way. And in general, we see a correlation between awareness and government initiatives. So typically the countries that have the highest awareness are countries where companies, governments are investing in driving a metaverse innovation and deployments, and where early metaverse platforms exist, which is the typical case of South Korea. I have also another interesting finding to share with all of you. When you segment consumers, what you see is that the category of consumers that has the highest awareness of metaverse is 5G users who play digital games frequently and own a VR headset. And it's fair to say that this specific segment represents the early addressable market for the metaverse. Let's now go deeper on what consumers expect from the metaverse. Again, this is based on our survey. And we asked the consumers, what is it you expect from the metaverse? Which of the following areas is going to benefit the most from the metaverse? And it's clear that the top 3 are online shopping, social networking, and then digital entertainment, whether it's music, video, or digital gaming. So this is what consumers expect from the metaverse. But you can see that there are also consumers expecting benefits in terms of using digital health or education or booking travel services. So I think consumers will benefit from the metaverse in different ways. Let's now focus on operators. Obviously, some operators are making progress in terms of metaverse strategies. SK Telecom is a good example, NTT Docomo, there are many other operators. However, when we talk with operators, we see that a majority of operators are still unclear whether there is a business opportunity for them. So, and we split this into opportunity for consumer metaverse and enterprise metaverse. Only 22% of operators globally say that they see the consumer metaverse as a significant or marginal opportunity for them. The same figure for enterprise metaverse is higher, 38%. So in general, operators are still trying to understand if there is an opportunity and how to play it. I also want to share some additional insights. When we look at regional variations, what we see is that operators in Asia Pacific are more bullish on the opportunity. And this is probably the effect of SK Telecom making progress on the metaverse, but also national strategies around the metaverse, South Korea, China. Then in general, operators are more optimistic about enterprise metaverse rather than consumer metaverse. And then it's fair to say that this uncertainty about the metaverse opportunity means that at the moment, only few operators have defined a specific strategy for the metaverse. Now, one of the things that we do at GSMA Intelligence is to assess if you are an operator and you want to play a role in the metaverse, how do you do that? What are your possible strategies? And we have identified 5 possible strategies for operators to play the metaverse opportunity. Connectivity and devices is about using metaverse use cases in order to upsell consumers to 5G and sell metaverse devices. Then a second option will be to sell third-party metaverse services or content. This involves a commercial partnership with an existing metaverse company, and operators will resell the services and platforms provided by these companies. This business model is not new for operators. They already do it with video streaming, for example, partnerships with Netflix, or with gaming, for example, partnership with Microsoft. Then last mile metaverse. This means you work with an existing operator that has a metaverse platform, and then you customize the last mile. So you take an existing platform and then you add the local content, you make the platform local for local audience and local segments. There are many examples, Deutsche Telekom, Singtel, Etisalat working with SK Telecom to commercialize SK Telecom platform in local markets. Then there is developing your own metaverse platform, which is what SK Telecom and other operators are doing. And then last but not least, be a comprehensive metaverse tech partner for B2B opportunities. This means an operator being really a comprehensive partner for companies that want to develop metaverse solutions. Comprehensive means that the operator will supply the networks, the devices, the IT capabilities, the marketing, the distribution. So a truly end-to-end partner. We also compare these routes in terms of different metrics. Time to market, cost of deployment, metaverse expertise required, and the potential for monetization. And it's fair to say that as you go from the left-hand side to the right-hand side, it becomes more complex, takes more time to market, it requires more metaverse expertise, but at the same time, it offers greater potential for monetization. I don't want to say that each route is better than the other. It's basically an operator choice, whether to go on the left-hand side, right-hand side, or in between. And it's fair to say that for some operators, a metaverse strategy can be the combination of 2 or more of these routes. I have a final slide, which is about, okay, so operators are making progress on the metaverse. How does the metaverse fit with the wider operator revenue strategy? We all know that operators are expanding beyond connectivity in order to capture new opportunities in the B2C as well as B2B markets. One of the things that we do at GSMA Intelligence is we segment the portfolio of services provided by operators, and we split them into the traditional services, which is mostly around connectivity, and then services beyond connectivity. And you can see many examples here: B2C services beyond connectivity, B2B services beyond connectivity. And this now includes the metaverse. And based on this work, what we do is we quantify the percentage of revenue for operators coming from connectivity versus the percentage of revenue coming from services beyond connectivity. We look at major operators. Many of them are in Asia Pacific, including Japan and South Korea. What we see is that operators are making progress. The average contribution of services beyond connectivity to total revenue was 18% in 2017 and is now 24%. So there has been progress. Obviously, there are variations depending on operator strategies and the timelines, but really here the message is that operators are making progress, expanding beyond connectivity. And when we look at the revenue growth, what we see is that non-connectivity services are growing double-digit. Connectivity revenue is growing low single-digit. So these services beyond connectivity are important to drive revenue growth. If you want to know more about our research on the metaverse, you will see in the material that Johnny will share that there are some links to our reports and case studies. We have done case studies for the metaverse on Telefonica, Verizon, and SK Telecom. And if you want to know more about GSMA Intelligence, what we do, how we work, the type of services and products that we have, feel free to reach out to me or reach out to Johnny or go to our GSMA Intelligence website. And with that, I will leave the floor to Johnny. Thank you.
Grazie. Thank you, Pablo. Okay, fantastic. Very detailed and comprehensive presentation to really set the scene. Thank you, Pablo. Pablo, just one thing, and for all the speakers that are presenting, could you, after you do the presentation, could you maybe stay back if you have to go, maybe for about 10-15 minutes to answer any of the questions in the boxes, please? There are a number of questions that come up from our audience. So if you can just keep that in the back of your mind after you do your presentations. So again, thank you, Pablo, for setting a good background for this virtual seminar. Next, I invite Mr. Mikio Iwamura-san from NTT Kyonkyu, which is a leading metaverse platform service provider, part of NTT Docomo, the incumbent mobile operator in Japan. Iwamura-san's presentation is on individuals becoming individuals in proliferating metaverse. Very much focused around the importance of digital identity. So Iwamura-san is the Executive Vice President at NTT Kyonkyu. So Iwamura-san, the screen is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see my screen now? Or?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So hello, my name is Mikio Iwamura. I'm from NTT Kyonkyu today. Kyonkyu, and sorry, it's a little bit hard to pronounce.
Yes, sorry.
Well, NTT Kyonkyu was established last October. We are 100% subsidiary of NTT Docomo in Japan. And this company was established to drive extra business development. And our business spans from Metaverse, digital twins, to producing original XR devices. And just to give you an example, I'd like to show you this video. I'm not sure how the video is playing over the conference bridge, but I hope you get the feel of what we do. We opened our XR studio in central Tokyo, and using our original system called Matrix Stream, we can do live motion capture of performances and apply the motion data to avatars for real-time streaming performances. And we can showcase at real venues for live performances and also do live streaming over the internet. And this is just one example of what we do. And I guess we can imagine how such technologies will transform the way we express ourselves and interact with people, and hence how we form our identities. And regarding the digital identity topic, you may be expecting me to talk about things like Web3 or self-sovereign identity, but I'm going to refrain from talking about that today, and because I thought that that's too familiar. And I thought, how should I make this my talk interesting? And I thought I'd tackle this from a slightly different perspective. So I'm going to talk from more philosophical perspective today. I hope this will be interesting. Now, if we want to talk about digital identities, we first have to understand what is really identity. And but for me, this is quite clear, and it's everything that is lost if you do not exist. So be it biological, genetic, or cultural, it's all about, it's about all the context in the world that is formed because of your existence. And so it's about how your context is spread across people around you and the environment over time and space, and the impact it created. And for me, the purpose of life is to spread your context and hence your identity. And our traits and behaviors that benefit this has evolved over time through the process of natural selection. And there are fundamentally two ways to spread your context. One is, of course, to breed your offspring, and the other is to influence your environment. And recent studies in evolutionary biology have shown that the genetic and cultural inheritance exhibit co-evolution, but modernity has been inclining toward the cultural side, the right side, as we gain more liberty and power to exploit the environment. This is in a way causing less birth rates and declining population in countries like Japan. And I'd like to talk a bit more about what is happening to our environment. And ideologies and regimes based on neoliberalism has fluidized labor, as Zygmunt Bauman called it, liquid modernity, destroying traditional social order and bonds. And rapid development under capitalism has annihilated frontiers, leading powerful states to seek imperialization. And we are also facing an epidemic of bullshit jobs, as David Graeber wrote in his book. He was a professor at LSE, and he did a survey to thousands of people asking the question, will anyone in this society be troubled if you suddenly stopped your work today? And the majority said no. Interesting. And he said around 70% of our jobs are really non-essential today. And our jobs are vastly information intermediaries and providing hospitality for sales. But the problem about majority of our jobs today is that they are fundamentally emotional labor, and you have to deal with double contingency, which means you have to deal with your customer interactively, and that is mentally demanding. On top of that, a pandemic created more mistrust and alienation. Furthermore, modernity has transformed human relations into product relations, as we like to gain more freedom by money-cutting ties. And as Gerald Zimmel said, we are becoming anonymous in the city. We like to seek more freedom and liberty, but the more we do, we end up in depressive loneliness. And this is forcing us to be more self-responsible, but in contradiction, we are inclined to blaming others because it is too hard to be always self-responsible when we have too many choices. So we tend to escape from freedom. And the recent trends of authoritarianism and populism may be an inevitable result of modernity. And to add, greedy businesses based on digital technology has led to things like attention economy, smartphone addict, and echo chambers. This is causing societal issues like diminished mindfulness and democracy crisis. An MIT professor, Sherry Turkle, is alarming that we expect more from technology and less from each other. And as a result of our increasing individualization, we lost much of references to define ourselves, like the class, birthplace, or family background. The volatile environment is forcing us to continually ask ourselves, who am I? And this is very hard for everyone. So a key issue for us today is emotional deterioration. In a book by Sherry Turkle, there's a story about a 19-year-old boy who says he would avoid face-to-face because he doesn't know what he will say in front of people. So people opt for SMS and medium that is not real time and on demand. But I have to ask, is this a world that we like to promote? And do we like to live in a world where we lose much of our original sociability as our emotions deteriorate? And in this regard, there's an interesting survey done by the Japanese Cabinet Office in 2019. The left graph shows how happiness depends on the household income. And you can see that happiness increases to a certain point as you gain more income, but starts to decrease as you gain beyond some point. And this is because you lose faith in others and your community capital fades. The right shows that happiness simply increases as you have more reliable persons around you. So for happiness and well-being, you need to increase your sum of community capital in terms of narrative and diversity. And what is crucial is to build trusted relationships. And building trust is to develop confidence in one's expectations. And for that, communication is simply indispensable. And when a group of people gather, people start to communicate to understand each other better. This will eventually form a community norm. But since we are all different, certain people always deviate from the norm. And if you are alienated, you may want to escape. But in physical reality, changing communities, jobs, or moving is always very cumbersome. So this is much easier in the digital space. You can switch digital identities, applications, and avatars. But I believe existing internet, small 2D displays, and smartphones are really insufficient, if not detrimental, to build trusted relationships. Biological studies have shown that body synchrony is very effective in building trusts, but smartphones are far from achieving this. I think the technologies of XR and virtuality will provide us with much better tools for us to co-experience and develop narratives for well-being. And technologies of avatars will enable us to edit our abilities on demand. An individual can be decomposed into various factors like your looks, motions, voices, inner thoughts, and interactions. And you can capitalize on your strong features while compensating your weaknesses by digital technology or AI, depending on the community that you seek to join. So we will not just act as personas, but more like individuals. And hence an individual becomes aggregation of individuals. This will allow us to join more communities dynamically, provide us with more opportunities, and enable us to develop community narratives, thus helping our profound emotions. And finally, I'd like to mention that communication is really to build trusted relationships, and telecommunications is to facilitate such communications. And that has been the core value of telecoms. But in recent years, we seem to be lost in the vast realm of digital space. But our mission should continue to be that at the bottom of all changes. Thank you very much. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Yoamura-san. That was a very, as you mentioned before, a very philosophical presentation. And but that makes a lot of sense, And you know, whether it was 1G, sorry? Okay. So whether it was, for example, 2G, 3G, 4G, or 5G, and so on, and on every stage, every G of the communications, stage, this trust is also something that's very, very important. And of course, as I mentioned in the previous, at the start of our session, building the trust through, for example, security, through identity, confident identity provision and so forth is absolutely necessary to ensure the prosperity of the metaverse and of course the online ecosystem, digital ecosystem. But thank you again for a very informative and philosophical presentation, Yomura-san.
I hope you are not too surprised by my presentation.
No, it was really refreshing. It was very, very refreshing. It was very, very. I think I saw Coogan, listening very, very intensely as well. I think you found it quite interesting as well, right, Coogan?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Yomura-san.
Thank you.
Great. So next, I'd like to, having heard from an incumbent, digitally pioneering, MNO, of course, part of an MNO, NTT Docomo. I would like to invite a non-MNO metaverse platform service provider. I invite George Wong from the Sandbox to share his presentation on commerce in the metaverse, to look at the fintech perspective of the metaverse. Now, George is the head of Singapore for the Sandbox in APAC. So, hi, George, over to you.
Thank you so much. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who's here. Thank you for having me. This is a refreshingly different platform that I'm speaking on. So I was very interested in the previous speakers and what they were sharing. Thank you so much. It was very enlightening, even for me. So just a brief background about myself and the Sandbox. So basically, the Sandbox is a Web3 metaverse. So, we are the metaverse that has all the implementations of blockchain and new forms of payments, etc. So that'll be a bit interesting for you. I'm originally from Malaysia. I take care of both markets and help to look at some of the other markets in Southeast Asia. And I've had a lot of history in the traditional space. So we really understand what most like so-called Web2 companies and their expectations and what they need. And what I do is actually we help a lot of Web2 companies kind of develop a strategy in the metaverse. So our insight's going to be a bit more practical compared to some of the illustrious speakers before me. But I hope to give you a view on what we are doing in the Sandbox and how we see it and what we think are the challenges, especially when, rightfully said, a lot of businesses, their main primary attraction to the metaverse is to open up a new revenue stream to their consumers, and of course, to be a bit more relevant in this space as this technology evolves over the next 5 to 10 years. So one thing I wanted to really highlight is that there's a lot of interrelation between metaverses and games. And the reason is because metaverses are built using game engines, right? In many senses, so whether it's from Facebook or from the Sandbox or Decentraland, a lot of the backend technology and the experience and the environments are built using game engines. And you can argue that the concept of metaverses, as much as we like to say it's new, actually has existed for a very long time. The concept of metaverses was first touted 20 plus years ago by Neil Stephenson in Snow Crash, and you see elements of it in games. Many multiplayer online games have metaverse as experiences or elements, and it's estimated that about 80% of consumers today have in some shape or form interacted with a metaverse experience, which is large open worlds, which allows you to interact with others, play, build experiences and so forth. And it's a huge industry. It's not something that is new, and it has already a very established ecosystem. But what I think really highlighted a lot of change was before I go into that, because it's a big industry that more than 400 brands are in the Sandbox itself, like who are working with us around the world, and we cover all spectrums. It's not just about consumer companies, but we also work with a lot of enterprises, and they see this future and they're investing into it. Some of them in a small way and many of them in a large way. The reason I moved to Singapore from Malaysia was because DBS wanted to go into the Sandbox in a big way, and they needed some help from us, and that's why I set up shop here as well. But essentially, you're looking at enterprise companies and consumer brands all converging in one space. And for us, that's what the metaverse really represents. I know the market is really viewing it as a consumer-centric or an enterprise-centric, but really a really robust metaverse is like a parallel world to our real world where both consumers and enterprises intermingle and mix. And that's kind of what we are building. And and it's not a small endeavor. We have more than 400 over people worldwide. More than 50% of them are just on development, and we're considered small for a game company. Many game companies that don't even have blockchain elements are numbering in thousands in terms of employees. So just to give you a sense of scale as to what kind of effort it's needed to build a standalone metaverse and also to go to market and to help people with the tech aspects, the development aspects. And the reason why brands are important and consumer brands are important is it's about content, because metaverses without any content inside is a dead metaverse. There's nothing there. And content is key. And if you understand about content and IP, that's where a lot of commercial value lies as well. And that's why we've put a lot of emphasis into onboarding brands as well. Now, jumping into that, I think in the last few years, the term metaverse really got big was because of the movie Ready Player One. And if you've not watched it, it's by Spielberg. And it showcases a lot of metaverse aspects and how it would relate to real life in everyday life. And you can see in the top left, the protagonist has all the hardware that is required to traverse into a VR metaverse. You see the commercial aspects where people are not only just buying virtual items and digital assets and valuing them as more important than physical items in real life. You actually see people working 100% in the digital space. Now, and you can argue that the currency that is being transacted within it is a form of cryptocurrencies, and cryptocurrencies to many people is a dirty word. But if you think about central banks issuing their own digital currencies, which are also essentially cryptocurrencies in nature, probably in the next 5 to 10 years, suddenly this type of commercial aspect becomes more viable as it's now backed by a sovereign currency as well. And there's that potential that we see many years down the road, right? And people are coming in together and interacting and playing games and earning money within the digital space, and they are represented in avatars, which is based off various IPs. And that's why you see Street Fighter, Overwatch, these kind of games on that picture there. And that's because that's exactly what's happening in metaverses now. You can argue games like Fortnite has a metaverse experience, and they already have many IPs going into that space. So there's a lot of commercial value already in metaverse experiences, games, and so forth. And Web3 adds that added layer because of blockchain and so forth, right? But I think the first thing that's going to affect people's experiences when it comes to purchasing anything online and transacting is actually the user interface. Now, many people are building different technologies for it, especially VR headsets, AR, and a lot of people ignore that metaverses are not just VR, but there's also the mobile phone and games online that people are accessing metaverse experiences, and how those transactions takes place, that customer journey and that seamlessness is really what's being developed right now. Because if you look at a blockchain-enabled metaverse, the digital asset sits with the individual, right? So they buy a digital asset in the form of NFT, and it sits with an individual. And because of that, it creates an open market where the digital asset is traded freely, unlike a traditional game with no blockchain. The asset doesn't sit with the consumer, and the marketplace is being determined by the platform itself, and that's the only platform. But because blockchain-enabled assets creates a free market, a completely open market, it changes the dynamics considerably, the technology behind it. So suddenly, when it comes to transacting something, you're not really in control, right? And that's something that's a bit unique. Like, for example, you can create an NFT, and platforms like OpenSea or LooksRare or any of these new platforms don't require your permission to make your product available for sale. So these are some of the challenges. It creates some geographical challenges as well. If some of the assets have to be limited by certain areas because of IP, and in terms of how the item is being purchased within the metaverse, they actually go out to a separate platform. It's not fluid. And that's what the market is trying to develop right now. And because it's not fluid, it's considered very early stage because there's a lot of friction when it comes to buying. So people just don't buy as much as you expect. So it's so early, but we believe that as technology evolves, we're investing heavily in making this customer journey a lot better and working with partners like banks and telcos in terms of the other aspects, everything from custody, in terms of payments that uses tokens and smart contracts, in terms of conversion to fiat currency. There's so many, the whole chain, so that brands can benefit from the sale of the digital asset is still being developed and something we're working on aggressively as well. Right, so this gives you an overview why it's early, why some tech needs to happen, a lot of integration needs to take place, a lot of collaboration. We are really at that infrastructure building layer right now, especially when it comes to Web3 tech. So I won't go into the experiences and all that, but that's very crucial. Experiences created by brands creates content, which ultimately fuels that new digital economy, right? And and a lot of people don't think that the transactions are good. I think being a unicorn status Web3 Metaverse, one of the very few, if not the only, we have made a lot of headway. We do have players. The average play time is 1 hour 20 minutes, which is very long for any digital engagement because it's a game. Daily active users are high, and we've distributed a lot of SAN tokens because people are actually wanting to earn these tokens in game. And we have distributed more than 11 million worth of SAN tokens. And in terms of like sales, though, you can look at the purchase transactions, only 855,000. So there's a lot of interest in it, but in terms of the buying experience and actually buying it, it still have some ways to go, right? And that's just to give you a quick snapshot. And how people earn this new currency, and that changes a lot of dynamics of brands interacting in the metaverse space, is because everything is based around an experience. People are playing, people are earning tokens, people are spending it in game because of these games, and all this is done within a metaverse, and you can do any kind of activity, whether it's commercial, enterprise, or consumer. Right. And lastly, I'm just going to quickly touch on avatars. Now, avatars is very interesting. It is what I would say an early precursor of what a front-facing digital ID is going to be, because the reality is when it comes to gamers and people in the digital space, they don't want to look like themselves. They want to be someone like, let's say, Snoop Dogg or any of their favorite celebrity, and you're being represented by something that is very visually viable, recognizable in the space and at the same time, who's behind it, you don't really know. Now, this creates some problems because that's where issues like cyberbullying, and scams, because people are hiding behind anonymous avatar, can create problems, and some people are foolish enough to believe that with a Snoop Dogg avatar, you're actually Snoop Dogg. There are all kinds of problems that exist in this space, but there is tech that allows verification despite people hiding behind these avatars. And I think that when that occurs, actually more transactions can occur because there's a higher level of trust, right? The big problem with Web3 is anonymity is a big issue. And that's where you have KYC issues and so forth. And there is tech, we do KYC. So we're one of the very few Web3s that do it because we understand this problem. And but there's a lot of evolution before you can tag your, let's say, your national ID to your digital avatar. So these are conversations that are still happening, and the technology is still being developed. I think it's still very, very, very early days where digital ID being represented in the metaverse is going to be mainstream, right? Still a lot of tech to be there, but of course, we understand that as a result of the other area that you want to look at is that avatars will then be how people interact in the space, which then creates new kinds of jobs. There's going to be a lot of new jobs in the metaverse, and we are already doing payrolls with crypto to many people around the world because we employ so many people, and some people we don't even know who they are because we've only seen their avatar. So that's an interesting dynamic to think about as well, how that would evolve in the space. So, and because there's so many things, I think in the first presentation, Pablo talked about ecosystems. We've already started building a huge ecosystem, the infrastructure to help people to develop in the space. We work with brands, education. We have a fund to help people to develop experiences and work with many agencies and studios. And we have more than 200 studios worldwide building in the metaverse to help new entrance into the space. So the challenge in metaverses right now is you cannot wait for the ecosystem to happen. We need to create it. And actually, this is where the current financial value lies in the metaverse before mainstream adoption takes place. So with that, I'd like to end my time. If you want to follow us in Singapore, please follow us on Twitter. This is that. And if you are interested to try the sandbox and you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. They'll be found at www.sandbox.game. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, George. A very interesting presentation and very refreshing as well. Okay. You know, it's you know the previous presentation was very philosophical. Yours is more practical. I just would, before we go on to the next presenter, you know, you're doing so much. Are you working with you know, our ecosystem, our mobile operator members?
We do in some shape and form, although I think many of them either struggle with wanting to build their own metaverse, which we can see many of them are. We normally don't recommend it because it's very hard for one company to manage two very different kind of entity, especially if you want to do a robust metaverse. So that's always a conversation. And the other thing is the other challenge, I think, with telcos is how does it connect with existing business? Like if they build an experience in the metaverse, and we're talking about dealing with how it looks into like for all the services that they have, the contents that a lot of telcos are dealing with right now. That's a synergy, but the bridge and that business flow is still not well developed. Experimenting, but it's I would say it's early days, and we're really happy to work with them.
Okay, let's work together to get more mobile operator members engaged with you guys as well. Okay, let's work together. Great, thanks a lot, George. I appreciate it. Great, fantastic. Really interesting presentation and insight. You know, related to the importance of not only you know fintech, but also about digital ID, which brings us to the next presenter. I'd like to invite Pai Achut from the Bridge Alliance, and we GSMA at APAC. We work very closely with our Bridge Alliance you know, partners to share his presentation on enabling the metaverse with mobile identity APIs. So I think it's a good flow on from George's presentation. Now, Pai Achut is the Director of Innovation Projects at Bridge Alliance. And Pai, it's good to see you again following the DXAF Leader CXO Summit in Tokyo, Japan at the end of November last year. So great to see you again. I look forward to your presentation. The screen is yours.
Thanks, Johnny. Hope you're able to see my slide, yeah?
Yes.
Great. Hello, everyone. So first of all, thanks to GSMA for giving us this opportunity to present at the Digital Transformation Acceleration Forum. I'm Pai Achut from Bridge Alliance, responsible for driving innovation projects, mainly focusing on 5G enterprise and telco APIs. So today, I'll be talking on this topic of enabling the metaverse with mobile identity APIs, which I think was briefly touched upon earlier, and the exciting initiatives that we are driving with our member operators. So starting first with Bridge Alliance, we are a close-knit community comprising of 34 mobile network operators with an extensive footprint in APAC, Middle East, and Africa. So collectively, we serve over 100 markets with more than 1 billion subscribers. So just a bit more about Bridge Alliance. So back in 2004, we started off roaming as a key business pillar. Since then, we have expanded into Internet of Things, enterprise solutions, and 5G, trying to serve the MNC enterprise customer needs in Asia. As you know, Asia is quite diverse when it comes to different regulatory requirements, maturity of network technologies, as well as the cultural nuances. The sweet spot for Bridge Alliance is to drive harmonized platforms and solutions to serve MNC enterprise customer needs by driving tight collaboration with our member operators. A great example here is our IoT platform, where we allow, for example, automotive customers to have a single relationship, a single contract with a lead operator to deploy multi-market connected products. And similar to IoT Gateway, we now offer regional enterprise solutions such as CPaaS, the communication platform as a service. And now we are looking at regional opportunities around telco APIs, which will be relevant for some of the metaverse use cases that was discussed earlier. Now, starting first with the metaverse use cases that we see in our member operator markets, the ones deployed by our member operators. Broadly, we are seeing 3 categories. So the first is the immersive experience, where there are high-value production-grade entertainment contents. The second category is AR-based real-world metaverse. And the third one is the VR social metaverse. Starting with the first, AIS Thailand has launched this 5G Play VR, where they're offering a variety of 360-degree international as well as local contents. AIS users could get close to their celebrity users, could watch big concerts in VR 360-degree, as well as explore travel destinations like never before. And this is available both on smartphones as well as the headsets. CSL Hong Kong launched Real World Metaverse. I think it was mentioned earlier, the browser-based Metaverse, as well as available on the smartphones, where they're offering location-based merchant offers in Hong Kong. And this involves a variety of AR gamification for online to offline conversion and redemptions at the various merchant outlets. So this is something which CSL Hong Kong has built as well. And the third one, which was mentioned from SK Telecom Korea, is IFLAN, which was launched back in 2021. So this is a social metaverse where users could create their own avatars and participate in a range of activities, including watching live K-pop contents. Perhaps John, you would have experienced it, as well as various fan meetings, meet and greet sessions in virtual spaces. IFLAN has gone global with over 49 countries. So in Singapore, for example, SKT has a deep metaverse partnership with Singtel, and they launched their first metaverse event in Singapore called Destination IFLAN earlier this year. So with the advent of metaverse, I think this was also discussed in terms of the need for a global digital identity. It's expected that metaverse will become a medium of commerce comprising of real value transactions and interactions. So as an example, like in the previous use cases, a user could have a workplace avatar to participate in a conference meeting, then switch to a casual avatar for doing a live stream shopping event, and then seamlessly transition to a student avatar for participating in a metaverse classroom. So, but for this seamless transition to work, the digital identity definitely needs to be composable so that you can transition between the different kind of metaverses, need to be portable, as well as user control. So the key question here is, how do we map the metaverse user avatar onto real world identities? As I think in the previous presentation, George also pointed out, how do we do this in an interoperable manner? So if you look at the identity landscape today, it's quite fragmented. The large tech companies are doing their own things. Governments are doing their own identity initiatives. So most likely we'll have multiple identity service providers leveraging on real world credentials such as the EID, passport, driving license, so on and so forth. Now, there is clear value in the telco data in establishing the trust and asserting the digital identity through various attributes, the mobile identity attributes such as the phone number, SIM card info, various network signals, as well as the subscriber data attributes. So it's important that MNOs and telco operators in general immerse and be a part of this identity landscape by exposing all these attributes in a simplified manner through global APIs. And Bridge Alliance, just to share with you, we've already started this journey of the telco API exposure, including the mobile identity APIs, so that the developers, the application providers, different metaverses can consume this in a simple, open, and consistent manner. We started off first by offering the CPaaS platform, which many of our member operators already launched in their market, to enable a suite of real-time communication services to their enterprise customers. So CPaaS, as you know, leverages mainly on the voice messaging and video APIs, enabling the enterprise customers to offer delightful customer experiences. A great example here is a ride-sharing company, a ride-sharing organization using the number masking APIs to anonymize the numbers between the riders and the drivers. Or an enterprise or a business could be using the connectors from CPaaS to offer a Teams or a Zoom connector for unified communication services. So that's the baseline. So beyond this, we have also started looking at the adjacencies on CPaaS, starting with the mobile identity APIs. There is initial demand, especially coming from the banks and the FSI sector, to utilize APIs such as number verify, SIM swap, roaming status, mainly for fraud prevention use cases. But beyond this, we are also started demand coming from the large OTTs and the new application providers, looking at, for example, the number verify APIs to seamlessly onboard their new customers, new end users, as well as to enable the login process. So the Bridge Alliance focus here is mainly to look at some of these regional requirements coming from the customers on mobile identity. Beyond this, we are also looking at the 5G driven telco APIs. So this is in line with the GSMA Open Gateway initiative as well. So this will again enable a new wave of application, be it the immersive apps, be it the metaverse applications, both on the consumer side as well as on the enterprise side. A great example here is we have recently concluded a real world trial with an application partner, Fintech, for a 360-degree live streaming use case. So in this trial, a music event was held in Montreal, and this event was streamed simultaneously to the audience in Singapore and Bangkok. The participants could watch 8K 360 music content, but at the same time interact in real time with the musicians as well as with the host. Samitech used the camera edge discovery APIs to essentially discover and order the MEC resources in 2 markets, in Singapore as well as in AIS Thailand, and deploy their latency sensitive application. So again, a great example on how 5G driven APIs, the 5G telco APIs will be enabling some of this low latency applications, including various metaverse use cases. And we'll be exploring more such use cases going forward. So that summarizes the journey that we have taken so far, and Bridge Alliance will continue to drive regional ecosystem growth in unison by collaborating with developers, application providers, metaverse partners, and also with GSMA. So thank you so much for listening, and back to you, Johnny.
Thank you very much, Pai, for your presentation from a different angle. Enabling the metaverse, and of course, focusing on the enablement of digital ID through APIs and so forth. It's great. So next, I'd like to invite Mr. T. Coogan from Celcom Digi, one of major MNOs in Malaysia, to share his presentation on maximizing the metaverse opportunity and the operator's perspective. T. Coogan is Chief Innovation Officer at Celcom Digi. And hi, Coogan. So great to have you on board as a speaker, and thanks for joining us. Over to you. The screen is yours.
Thank you, Johnny. Can we have it on full screen, please? Excellent. So the topic, it's slightly different. I mean, this is to give a flavor on the perspective of an MNO when it comes to metaverse. A little bit about Celcom Digi, the #1 operator in the country. We pride ourselves in Malaysia. 2 out of 3 Malaysians are a Celcom Digi user. And as part of our ambition to grow our revenues and to protect our core business, we have formed, as part of the merger exercise between Celcom and Digi, an innovation center. And at the heart of the innovation center, one of our primary focus is essentially to look at next-gen internet and to ensure that as a business, we are hedging our bets and protecting our future. So Metaverse is one of the key initiatives which is being focused on. Let's move on to the next slide. It gives a sense of the market. I think it was presented earlier by GSMA. We do see a potential with Metaverse emerging right now, but scaling and gaining scale over the next couple of years and probably reaching maturity and beyond into 2030. I think what's more important is to look at the amount of investment which has gone into the Metaverse. In 2022, over 120 billion has been invested into Metaverse by various partners. Today, the market is fragmented. We are seeing development across device manufacturers, operators, and so on. And one of the things we are trying to address as an operator, as we sit in the center of that ecosystem, is to ensure their scalability. And to do that, I'm sure there's a panel discussion later, and we will take that discussion forward over there. I think what's more exciting is the development of applications across both consumer and enterprise. We do see 59% of consumers are excited about transitioning their daily activities into the metaverse. 57% of metaverse aware companies are saying that they are adapters. So we do see this as a key driver in the Malaysian market. By 2025, we do see a market potential of about 450 million. So the market opportunity is there. It's just that how do we come together and pull our assets and resources to ensure we are able to tap into this new opportunity. Next slide. This is to give you as an operator, it takes quite a bit to really get the metaverse going because we have the end user relationship. So the enablers are pretty key in terms of ensuring that we have the right partners when it comes to backend tech, blockchain, and the right hardware. So there are a number of partners here. It's still early days in Malaysia, but we do see a number of partners coming into the market, and we are in the midst of talking to them. I think customer fronting, it's more with regards to ensuring the virtual world and the digital platform and content coming together. So essentially 6 enablers has to be interacting very closely to ensure that the end user experience is optimal for our customers. Next slide. But the challenge remains, the major challenge is how do we have a unified, interoperable, universal metaverse? I was recently in Barcelona, and you can see the metaverse, of course, being presented by various players. The device manufacturers have their own version. The operators have their own version. And standardization is going to be key. Interoperability is going to be key. If this is the next version of the internet, we need to address this as soon as possible. And I'm really happy that GSMA is taking very significant steps towards this direction. And we're excited to be part of this discussion. Next slide. Lots of opportunities, but to summarize, there are applications across enterprise and consumers. We do see, as a telco, we do see 3 emerging trends. One is around the area of education. We do see lots of potential there using the metaverse. We do see potential within the healthcare industry and remote access for collaboration. So lots of this potential will be translated into enterprise use cases. We do see from a consumer perspective, lots of this will be around gaming and entertainment. And that's where we are working towards a number of use cases. Next. This is just to give you a sense, we don't want to be left out. And it's very key for operators to ensure that we no longer go through that cycle of letting the OTTs eat our lunch, right? So essentially, how do we protect our business, our core future? And one of the things we are looking at is SKT was mentioned a number of times. After significant assessment, we do see that SKT is a credible partner when it comes to launching of the metaverse for CelcomDigi. We have partnered with SK Telecom, and this cuts across 48 operators globally. And the idea is this is to bring and to ensure that the operators come together and pull the ecosystem of partners, essentially the 6 layers which are mentioned, and how do you bring them together? We do see this as a significant step for us, and we are looking at bringing this to market very, very soon. And lots of development there. I think the advantage we have with SK Telecom is lots of the development and the platform capabilities has been going through over the years in the Korean market. We are adapting that over to Malaysia. Next slide. Lots of use cases globally, as you can see. Everyone has their own version of the metaverse, ranging from entertainment to enterprise use cases. We will be doing one very, very soon. Next. So I think this is quite key for us. When I said the enterprise use cases, which is primarily driving a significant shift, we do see the next version of the enterprise case for operators. Essentially, if you look at the operators globally, the revenue from enterprise business is still probably low to high single digits, with the exception of a few. So we do see the metaverse playing a key role in really accelerating this further, primarily around driving impact, speed, and scale across industries. So these are live test cases where we have seen the metaverse truly improving maintenance and inspection costs when it comes to infrastructure, in plants needing to reduce travel expenses and improve labor management, in construction to improve air delays and on-site safety incidents and so on. So this is going to be key for us. And I do see the convergence of both the metaverse and artificial intelligence coming together to really enable this a significant shift in the enterprise space. Next slide. Very, very simple, very illustrative, just to give you a sense of how complex, traditional way of doing the business and looking and understanding manuals. With the metaverse coming on board, it really transcends and ensures the consumer or the enterprises are able to carry out the business in a more efficient way. Next. Finally, I think I would just want to highlight a couple of things. We spoke about digital identity, fintech, and security. Predicting the metaverse over the next couple of years is going to be definitely very dependent on some changes around societal, economic factors, and so on. But I think what needs to come together is scalability. And to do this, I think the role with GSMA is playing together with the operators is going to be key, bringing the device manufacturers into the ecosystem, application developers, content developers, and so on. And this is going to be extremely important. And the role of personal ID protection, secure payment systems, and so on is going to be something which is going to be discussed. And to ensure that these are being addressed collectively rather than individually. With that, I will stop here and thank you, Johnny.
Thank you very much, Kugan, for a very detailed presentation. I've got a couple of questions, but we're fighting for some time. So I'll go through, I'll finalize the questions and I'll ask that question during the panel discussion time, okay? Next, for our last presentation, I'd like to invite my friend and colleague and fellow Aussie, Samantha Kite, to share her presentation on security for the digital ecosystem and the metaverse. Now, Sam is head of industry security at GSMA and leads many industry initiatives related to security, working with ecosystem players and partners. I hope you'll get the chance and the opportunity to join and participate in her security initiatives going forward. So hi, Sam, our GSMA security expert. The screen's yours.
Great, thanks, Johnny. Thank you all for having me. So I'm going to cover a bit of background on security at the GSMA. Hopefully you can see. So at the GSMA, we are continually trying to enhance. I think I got a bit click happy there. Let me go back. Slow on my screen. Here we are. To support our membership. And the way we do this is by looking at the threats targeting the mobile ecosystem as they emerge. Our vision is to secure the mobile ecosystem as a whole, and we do this in three main areas. We do it through industry collaboration, by providing expertise, and by looking forward and assessing the future and securing the future. So practically, how does this look? We have the fraud and security group. This is most of the work done in working groups for us, and it's member-led. So delivering industry specifications, convening the industry, doing recommendations and guidelines, promoting security baseline, which is something that we do in lots of different areas, and then also facilitating education and intelligence sharing. We then look at addressing the gaps through our strategy, securing the future, and providing expertise. Then the last point is operations, and as part of this, we have threat intel platforms where our operator members and wider members can share threats that they're facing within the industry, and it's something that is widely used, and that's something that we're really proud of. Another thing worth mentioning is the mobile security landscape report. This is the 5th one that we've produced. You can download it off our website. And we've been tracking threats throughout 2022 from public sources, as well as our threat intel sharing platform. The main themes within this covers infiltration, so obtaining unauthorized system or access data, access exploitation, and availability compromise. So things like denial of service attacks. All right, and on to the fun. So securing the metaverse. So cybersecurity is necessary to provide a reasonable level of trust and assurance to businesses and consumers before we think the metaverse will become more widely accepted. Just to give a bit of background, let's clarify the two forms of metaverse. So we look both at virtual reality and augmented reality. So virtual reality is full immersion into the virtual world, where users have little or no real world reference to assess the information that is presented to them. And it's, the immersion is really increased and the user is susceptible to fake or fraudulent information. With augmented reality, it's a virtual overlay. So users still have a normal view of their surrounding, but the information is relative to the real world environment. And we think there's a lower risk of impersonation attacks. But let's have a look at some of the threats and challenges. So the attack surface will be large due to an expected increase of new devices and infrastructure. It's also worth remembering that there are new threats, but the existing problems of the digital ecosystem and landscape don't go away and still need addressing. Impersonation attempts could be quite big. Gaining credentials could mean an attacker gains your avatar and becomes you. Authentication also needs to be reviewed. We're having a look at, can the current methods be transferred? Now, are there security advantages? Metaverse being built on the blockchain, so unlike current digital on vulnerable centralized infrastructure. Some of the old-fashioned crime is still the same, including fraud, scams, even robberies can be expected, as well as new. Maybe the single biggest challenge I would say in the metaverse is probably identity. So blockchain and others may be a component tool, but there's no common reference to identity or to attest someone against. In the physical world, we have numerous identifiers, such as your passport, utility bills, MSISDN, IMSI, SMS, all those sorts of things. Another thing worth considering where it starts to get a bit blurred is the number of physical attacks. So human physical security, it's possible to control immersed users and move them onto location in a physical space without their knowledge. I think there've been talks of, maybe tripping someone over stairs and them not knowing. Overlay attack, which displays undesired context to a user's view, and a disorientation attack for confusing or disorientating a user. There's another spying. Instead of men in the middle, we have men in the room attack, an attacker in a virtual room without someone else's knowledge. And then another big one is spillover, so an attack or fraud in the virtual world, which enables subsequent fraud or exploitation in the physical world. So the metaverse does provide near infinite options for user-to-user communications, but we need to be able to develop techniques to moderate those communications where needed and at a scale to protect users from fraud, exploitation, or harm, especially children. So the next slide, I'm looking at some of the security considerations. I've broken it up into 4 main areas. So we've got cybersecurity, security policy, security standards, and physical security. Under cybersecurity, there's some of the ones that I mentioned on the previous slide. To cover security policy, this covers privacy breaches, identity theft, user education, and fraud. The GSMA has done some, I've got a little figure here of the key principles in the metaverse. So we have produced some work in that space as well, if you're interested in that. I think I just got this off the website. Physical security, that covers asset theft, physical threat, subsea cables, and power resilience. And then security standards, so interoperability, roots of trust, coding standards, security bill of materials, virtual economy manipulation, and virtual harassment and abuse. And then the last one, which I've not really mentioned here, but is quite big, brand and reputational risk. So even relatively minor fraud or loss in a virtual world may have quite a significant brand impact in the physical world. So what's next? I've tried to keep it simple. So what for the industry? So many operators are, investing globally in this space and considering security. The advancements in technology will have an impact in the way that security is approached. And I think it's a great thing. New monetized services will drive growth and investment and value, and that's really good to see. So at the GSMA, there does need to be an industry effort to address the potential challenges and threats that will arise. And underneath that, we need strong security controls and infrastructure so that we can have an actual longer term strategic approach to build on to provide a good service for consumers. And then wider considerations, as mentioned, privacy and security issues need to be addressed through policy. And then the gap between physical and security and cyber just is becoming very blurred. And then the reinvention of physical fraud and security attacks within the virtual world also need to be considered. And that was the end of what I had. So thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot, Samantha. Yeah, security is ubiquitous, isn't it? So,
I get to deliver all the
yes.
fun news to everyone. I stifle innovation. I'm trying not to.
No worries. Great. Thanks a lot. Great. Look, I hope everyone found the presentations very informative and very relevant to your area of work and responsibility. Now, I will begin a panel discussion session with industry panel participants sharing their perspectives around the theme, the metaverse, and the 3 enabling pillars. And so, you know, in addition to the speakers that have presented, we actually have additional panel participants. We have, you know, Henry Okoide, who's a senior manager from MTM Group, from all the way from Africa, joining us. We have Christopher Price, Director of Advanced Technology, joining us from Ericsson. We've got John Cap Kim, who's a Chief Executive Director of Borna Global Center in Korea. And just again, Borna Global is GSMA Digital Transformation Acceleration Forum's founding partner for innovation. So we do a lot of activities together in the area of innovation with Borna Global. So John Cap, welcome. We have Robin Show-Mosef, who's the head of Web3 and Metaverse from EPAM Continuum, and Arthur Corrali, who's a career consultant, an independent TMT consulting advisor. He's moving from one organization to another right now. So, you know, I'm sure we'll be in touch with him probably next few months. And of course, we have Valko Vasic, who's the CEO of Holy Wally, okay, who's heavily involved in of course, digital wallets and so forth, okay? So thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen, for joining. And, you know, we've had really good presentations, very interesting presentations, looking at the metaverse and the key pillars that really enable the metaverse. Okay. And so I've got a couple of questions that I'd really like to ask with some of you. And the first question that I'd really like to ask is from a macro perspective, you know, how do you envision the metaverse evolving over the next decade? And, you know, what do you think were the biggest challenges and opportunities in this space? And so with this question, first, I would like to actually reach out to John Cap, our founding partner for innovation, for your comments. John Cap.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Clear? Okay.
Yes, absolutely clear.
Hi, everyone. It's very nice to meet you. Metaverse is a very big concept and a very important, you know, some platform for the future. Not only the 1 decade, I think so, several decades. So that's why the Korea government, you know, set one of the key strategy is the promotion digital industry. Out of the digital industry, the metaverse is a very important role. I think that's a major role. So last year, the government spent $160 million to promoting and to build some ecosystem metaverse in Korea. But today, he mentioned what is the challenge and opportunity. In terms of the Korea viewpoint, metaverse, I think the foundation, well-founded, like a platform and educating some people, what is the metaverse? And they enjoy some platform like with the avatar and especially COVID-19, we utilize like a virtual meeting and something and virtual trade show. So I think this will, evangelize. This is a metaverse, but we think that's not just simply metaverse is not just simply platform, but it should be some connection with the real world. That's our main goal to achieve the metaverse, like remote operation of the factory, seamless, and maybe remote patient care, seamless with the hospital capacity. So this is our achieved goal for the next decade. So to make that, to achieve that kind of goal, we have several challenges. One is high-speed connectivity and ubiquitous connectivity. Let's say 5G, but with the high frequency. It should be connected with the very, seamless connection. Otherwise, play just some virtual good or some talk with each other. It's okay, but especially hospital operation, 0.1 second difference. It has some accident came out. So a special robot. So that's why it's not fully industrialized and fully extend the metaverse capacity into the real world. So this is one of our challenge. That's why the government tried to, collaborate with the for people how we extend hardware, different type of the IoT sensor, different type of the device, XR, AR device. And so I said it's a form factor. We need some different type of form factor to attach a metaverse activity. But still, we need some more innovative idea and development. So this is our big challenge to achieve the main goal. But if we have these all kinds of the environment, then I think one of the big opportunities virtual trade. Trade itself. Right now, trade, the metaverse trade is only the NFT like some virtual good. Some design or some the avatar style content. That's the consumption and the trading. But if we make this kinds of hardware and the connectivity and the platform together, then literally we can trade anything through the metaverse because there's no border line and no the country or language barrier. Especially because of ChatGPT or some different type of application. I don't think sooner or later we don't have any language issue at the metaverse. Then more people can involve global trading through the metaverse, not just only domestic trading. So this is we see some of the good opportunity, and also the other way of the opportunity is ESG. Especially every telco has a headache for the next 10 years or 20 years, ESG problem. And maybe we can solve the kinds of the problem with the metaverse, the platform. So I think that this is just nearby. We can see the opportunity on the metaverse. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, John Cap. Thanks, John. That actually, following on from your comments, I'd like to reach out to Arpad and then Chris, because you did mention about the need for the relevant infrastructure to be able to support that. Okay, so please, Chris, get ready. But I'd like to ask for Arpad's comments in relation to this question as well, please. Arpad?
Yeah, sure, Johnny. First of all, I appreciate the ask to be part of this panel. Is an honor as always to attend your sessions. It's also an honor to be part of the sessions where Jonkap is attending. I think this is my 5th. We're both Jonkap and I are panelisting. Hey, I would say in terms of challenges, I think Samantha is spot on. It's about privacy and also making sure that the entire metaverse and everything that has to do with it and Web3 ensures user a safe environment. Is not that today, and there's huge scrutiny taking place today by various regulators. in this region, but predominantly in the EU currently, in terms of how do you assure that, and what is the right legislation that need to be in place. That's definitely one enabler before we can see Metaverse taking up at scale. I mean, today we have, if I'm not wrong, about 520 million active users as per recent report I saw from World Economic Forum. That's not huge, in my opinion. There's also certain decline. If you're looking at the growth rate of month by month net adds, Q1 2023 vis-a-vis Q1 2022, I think there's a quite huge decline. We're looking at 43 million net adds Q1 2022 vis-a-vis 25 million Q1 2023. I think privacy is one of those reasons. Another reason is that the use cases are not there yet. There's no like real demand, again, at scale or sustainable, that drives that positive trajectory now. Will we get there by 2030, as Kogan is saying? Most likely, once the regulators can crack and scrutinize the current environment to make sure that that safe environment is placed, then I would say yes. The second is, which I haven't heard much about in this event, is the growth markets. Putting concept of APAC, a lot of talk about Korea, Singapore, Malaysia, but we're forgetting about Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, which represent the bulk of this region. Compared Korea to Philippines or Indonesia, we're looking at a consumer side. We're looking at a consumer spending about $40 per month on data or mobile, vis-a-vis like $1.50. In Philippines, in Asia, you need to work. If I put in context of socioeconomic classes D and E, you need to work about 5-6 hours a day in order to be able to subscribe or be able to do your recharges per month and get that data. Are they ready for Metaverse by 2030? Most likely not. So those are the challenges I see. It's privacy and it's cost, but also a certain negative sentiment today within sectors. I see it within telco. I mean, I'm happy to hear about Celcom Digi. That's very positive. Clients I've been working with over the past 24 months has gone from being very, very gung-ho bullish about Metaverse, putting quite substantial capex into it, but some opex too, in terms of partnership, but also building their own stuff, to now making it very cool. It's not even part of the product strategy for 2023, 2024. You see sectors very interconnected with telco, such as entertainment pulling out, right? This recently announced that they're shutting down the entire Metaverse division, and with that pivoting, right? They were looking at the use case in terms of theme parks, which also has been something telco's been a bit bullish about, one of the use cases with respect to entertainment. Will that shift over the course of the 7 years? Not sure, but hopefully, if the privacy challenge can be put in place. I hear a lot about SKT as well. I think SKT in terms of e-plan is good, but again, can that drive at scale if you consider APAC as a region? I'm not too sure. Partnership being spoken with telcos in more mature market. I mean, Malaysia is a more mature market compared to the ones I mentioned. Singapore, Singtel. I think that was also one event based. It's not really a full scale partnership yet. The third challenge is on content. I think Hogan was mentioning that too, like and George, in terms of content and content that can only be used in that in that space. That cracked, and yeah, I think it has a future. I don't see it as a priority amongst the clients I'm working with. So a bit of different views opposed to what we've been hearing, but it presents the reality I have been part of the course of the past 24 months. Yeah, I will pause there because I know we have a limit. Get too engaged and get too excited too, but yeah, back to you, Johnny.
Thanks, Arthur. Yeah, look, it's great to share a different perspective because I mean, obviously with Metaverse, last year there was a lot of hype. Now it's calming down. It's good to see. Do a sanity check from both sides. Okay. And Chris, I'd like to actually move to you as as one of the key vendors in the ICT sector, I'd like to hear your views in relation to the question that I asked, and of course, in following John Cap's comments about the need for necessary infrastructure to be in place as well. Yeah, over to you.
Thanks, Johnny. Yeah, I think infrastructure is key, whether it be physical or digital infrastructure. And from what we see with the metaverse, we see a different traffic model than the traditional evolved mobile broadband, and we'll see different build patterns, and we'll see different deployment types of networks in order to be able to deliver the best quality of service in metaverse environments. Personally, I'm a big believer in augmented reality. I think we will move towards. Kugan's having a chat. We'll move towards. We'll move towards an enhanced reality. You're right. It'll be metaverse all day, every day to some extent by 2030, I think, and in that it'll be experiences, whether you're shopping, whether you're walking down the street, whether you're interacting with a virtual avatar in a restaurant, for instance. It could be almost anything by 2030 that has a big impact on trade. And I think we talked a little bit about the digital infrastructure pieces, the digital identity, the digital fintech solutions, and so on and so forth. There is a need for trustworthy solutions to come through, not just on a platform by platform basis, but in a general trade and economy practice. That enable these types of systems to expand and explore beyond where they are today. So, yeah, I mean, we can talk a number of different solutions. I think that the comments around digital identity, trustworthy fintech solutions, need to be considered in a global.
Chris, I think you muted yourself.
Apologies. Thank you.
There we go.
All right. I'm not sure where I cut out, but suffice to say, the discussion around telecoms APIs and being able to expose network capabilities to enable use cases, to expose the values and capabilities that operators can provide on behalf of their users as a contextual identity or fintech solution towards other platforms and across borders will become more and more important as the metaverse expands and as we see more uptake in the X and AR environments. Thanks, Johnny. I'll stop there.
Great, thanks, Chris. Yes, then I would like to move on to Robin, because Robin's been involved, in the metaverse for a long time. Now he's involved in Web3. Robin, your views, please.
Yeah, thank you. So as Johnny just pointed out, I've been in the space for 7-8 years. I started a company called iCandy Lab. We built the first video streaming experience for the metaverse, if you will. We developed a proprietary technology to augment live video feeds or streaming content with contextually relevant and engaging content. So this is what we did with the startup iCandy Lab. It was acquired earlier this year by a Swedish company called Axedo, which is big in the OTT space. And now I'm heading a Web3 and metaverse practice at a big engineering company. So what I'm seeing now is obviously that the term metaverse, which everybody associates with fully immersive and virtual worlds, I think this is where one of the biggest challenges is right now. And this is not neither technical nor financial. It's more like a understanding, like a mindset challenge that I'm seeing. Because whenever I go there and introduce myself, like I'm heading Web3 and Metaverse, everybody's like, oh yeah, we did some stuff in Decentraland and what have you. Now we're kind of a little bit kind of going slower on this. And I'm in my opinion, and I don't remember who said it earlier, but I think it's really this kind of convergence of real world and the virtual world, right? I think That was John Cup who said it. So, you know, if you ask me, and I'm seeing, for example, a virtual avatar who's like having a natural conversation with you, who might be, you know, a sales agent at the next store, right? Is that already metaverse? In my opinion, it is, because it is happening in a real life physical space, but it is kind of fused with digital elements, and now kind of being on the other side of the table, so to speak, where I was previously at a product company doing like a lot of like we developed our own product, and that's what we kind of sold. Now being with an engineering company where I see that there's much more granularity to it. It's not just like black and white, like Web 2.0 and then fully immersive metaverse experience. It's gonna be a slope, and that slope is gonna become more and more steep. Like it's an exponential curve as more and more technologies is becoming available. So going back to also the point that was made earlier about the form factor, obviously very excited to see what's going to happen next week on Monday at the WWDC. I think we've seen plenty of rumors. And when I started iCandy Lab, I was already like, oh, you know, when Apple comes out with a device, everything's going to change. So now, you know, look at me 6 years later, Apple's still, you know, kind of not there yet. But I think, you know, it just takes time. And this is the reality that we dealing with every day. Is it just takes more time than many people anticipated. So I think small progress, whether it's through generative AI or if it's enablement through additional hardware, like for example, a potential headset, I think these are the building blocks of the metaverse, and we've done a big leap over the last 6 months.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you, Robin. Thanks. Look, what I'd like to, you know, having actually discussed the overall, you know, the challenges and the opportunities in relation to the metaverse, I'd actually move on to the second question in relation to the digital ID. Okay, playing the importance digital ID is playing in enabling the metaverse, and the type of challenges that we foresee in implementing a universal, for example, digital ID system. So just regarding that, I'd like to actually ask Henry from the MTN Group, okay? Because I know that you've been involved in this area for some time, Henry. It'd be great to actually hear your perspective on it, please.
Yeah, so digital ID is quite essential because the metaverse positions as the new limitless world, devoid of all the physical limitations of everyday life. Now, essential to this vision of the metaverse is the need for participants to have established and verifiable IDs, all right? Underpinning this is the need for a digital ID, you know, underpinning the need for a digital ID, without which you would start to have issues around impersonation, fraud, misappropriation of digital assets. So it's quite essential, the role digital ID plays in that space. Secondly, you also want accountability when there are virtual transactions. That's only possible if you are able to link the counterparties to a verifiable digital ID, creating trust and allowing people to exchange assets, you know, online. Thirdly, also, you would see that the metaverse is all about experience. What is unique about it is the experience. For that to happen, you need to be able to parameterize and capture history in logs, okay, and data which the platform is able to load each time a particular participant comes on board and offload when the participant is offline. Again, you need a digital ID to capture this in a way that there's consistency in experience, because this one makes the metaverse special. Okay, but there are challenges. There are challenges in delivering this. The first of them is striking a balance while developing or implementing the digital ID, striking a balance between creating a sophisticated enough digital ID, while also ensuring inclusion and accessibility. Because users are going to be in diverse parts of the world with different technical acceptance level and access to relevant devices and user infrastructure. So in building digital ID, we need to essentially take into cognizance that people in Africa, my continent, may not have the latest gears. So how do you create one that is consistent enough, at the same time, sophisticated enough to prevent fraud? Because if you don't do this, then you're going to affect the capacity for the metaverse to scale. So it's quite important to solve this problem. The second issue, as usual, has to do with the regulators, data residency and data ownership. This needs to be sorted out. Is there a way to store data within jurisdictions and only access them and process them on servers and cloud infrastructure in those jurisdictions in a way that meets all these requirements? It's tricky, but I think it's feasible these days with the speed of connectivity that we have. It's feasible. The faster the connectivity, the easier it is to pick data across geographies, process them as if you had them with you. Not leading to latency issues and all of that. That's another issue I think we need to look into. The other challenge is around creating a shared standard and protocol for these digital IDs, because what you have today is that certain providers have moved ahead. First user advantage. They define the standard the way they like, the way it enables them to compete better, and other people are coming around slowly. Later, you now have issues around shared standards. So maybe the GSMA might need to step in here to begin to create conversations around these shared standards for the digital ID, because it's very crucial. Okay, we the telcos are essentially the last mile distributors. Okay, we are good at getting it to the millions and the billions. What we just need is someone to lead this shared standard around how digital IDs should be defined, to make them accessible, and we can just deliver them to the last mile. Very easy. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Henry. Okay, thanks for your comments. Having said that, going on from there, obviously digital ID and, for example, fintech pretty much also go very much hand in hand together. So I'd like to actually hear from Valco, okay, about your thoughts on the interlinkage, the connection between digital ID and enabling fintech in the metaverse and in the digital ecosystem, please. Valco.
Thank you so much for the invite, Johnny. Always a pleasure to be at one of your panels, live or virtually. So as I'm involved in quite a lot of, I would say, fintech solutions and fintech marketplaces as running a white label digital wallet platform, I'm seeing a lot of fintechs consolidating into, I would say, experiences in a non-metaverse world. And what's actually interesting is that in the metaverse world, it will even more consolidate into one experience, right? And what financial services were 10 years ago was completely different what they are right now. It's called fintech, right? And the whole goal is to bring embedded finance to be one single experience, even outside of the metaverse. And in the metaverse, that will be amplified even more. So you will not only have one experience, you will basically have, one avatar or a number of different experiences in the virtual world that interact very seamlessly. Now, that's good news for sure for our industry, for all of us. We can expect metaverse-based wallets where you will not have like fiat, crypto, digital assets as a separate thing. You will have all as a one kind of asset. Which is great because against that you can do a lot of stuff like lending, like rewards, loyalty, etc. On the other hand, you will have e-commerce, obviously, that you can purchase different stuff in the metaverse. And for banks, it will be a new way of banking. Like one of you was saying that they're working with DBS, and I'm not surprised because DBS is definitely the leader in new cool stuff. And with the banking, you will have a virtual bank, you will have basically online sessions for loans, etc. This is all good news, right? So what about the authentication? What about the security? What about the identity? And this is not as good news because fraudsters basically recognize this opportunity. And attacks targeting Metaverse pioneers increased by 40% over Q4 2021 comparing to 2000 when the pandemic started. And also in the Metaverse, fintechs can expect a surge of synthetic account attacks. It's likely to increase to 30% from 9% in a digital world. And also what will happen is there'll be a number of different social engineering attacks, which is where Metaverse is pretty vulnerable. So in that sense, we definitely need to be careful. And the solution for this, what I personally see and seeing a lot of these partners, identity partners, is that the current identity partners such as AML, KYC, KYB companies will need to transition into Metaverse, and they will need to optimize their current methods to fit into Metaverse. For example, there's many of Jumio, Fido, AML, many different fintechs. So number one, they will need to adapt. Number two, there will be a number of new comers in the fintech space that will specialize in fintech identity, anti-fraud in the Metaverse. And I think this is an opportunity for new startups that they need to start exploring it now because it's happening now. As someone said, 2030, it will be all about Metaverse, right? So, and how long it takes to build a unicorn, approximately 7 years. So the time is now to start working on digital identity anti-fraud solutions that are very focused around Metaverse. And again, the existing ones will need to adapt to this because this will become our new reality. So mix of good, mix of not so good, but this is how the progress works. So I'm excited for the future.
Great, thanks, Phil. That actually, your comment actually, takes us to the next question that I really want to ask, and this is to George. What are some of the key, security concerns that need to be addressed in order to really enable the Metaverse, and how they can, can emerging technologies such as blockchain and AI be used to mitigate these risks? Okay, so George, your comments, please.
Well, I think security-wise, that there is a lot of things to consider, especially when we talk about a lot of transactions occur in the Web3 spaces, in cryptocurrencies. There are definitely anonymous tokens, and a lot of platforms we don't support that naturally because of the anonymity and KYC ML concerns. I think that we were initially very criticized for introducing KYC on our platform, but we felt that it was absolutely necessary, but the KYC only comes in when people are redeeming tokens for any of like the giveaways and for NFTs. So there is still an element of anonymity if they want to participate. But at the same time, we have to factor in other cases, like as a platform, we have to look into things like cyberbullying. We have a big team on that looks into that. So security is beyond just the assets and the transactions and the identity, but more on also the other aspects that people don't talk about, which is like mental health issues that occur in spaces like this, especially when we are accommodating people below the age of 18. And definitely many like kids are on these kind of platforms as well. And how do we manage those risks as well? So security for us there's multiple, and we actually invest. And I think you should support platforms that do invest into these things, because they are the custodians of your brand and your identity in the digital space. And that's what we've been doing. We've taken the flag, and I think that we're also developing more technology. Like we believe in more tech that allows us for verification without actually revealing identities as well. That's something that blockchain would probably enable, and we're looking to incorporate that. And most recently, we've been looking at using AI for that as well. So we're as a platform, we're investing more into AI. We see some potential, although there's so many aspects of how AI can be utilized. I'm really not at liberty to say what we're looking at yet, because there's so much. But I think that's also the opportunity for us, because I think that it would have the opportunity to remove the human element, as a lot of these cybersecurity moderation is done by humans, which are also prone to mistakes, and that's where probably AI can help. So some of the things we're looking at, and but there's a lot to do. Like there's so much aspects of security that we haven't even touched on yet. But these, I think, are like the points that we are looking at as a platform.
Great, thanks, George. Actually, following on from that, Sam, your comments, please.
Yeah, I think George summed it up quite well. I think I was actually trying to read up on this going, what do other people think? Someone described AI in the metaverse as cyber hell. I was a bit like, oh. I think you know, there are some benefits. AI can be used to detect and prevent cyber attacks. But as Georgia said, there's also potential risks and vulnerabilities. We do need robust governance frameworks. This can be done through standards work. I think the 4 areas, as I mentioned before, sort of the privacy, standards, cyber, physical, they all need to be covered. And again, data and privacy is something that's just going to keep coming up in all these areas. So like any technology, I think we just need to use it in a really responsible and ethical manner and develop the standards which will help us to keep it secure and safe.
Great, Sam. And look, and to finish off, I'd like to actually ask Coogan. I know, Coogan, you're the Chief Innovation Officer, but usually my understanding is Chief Innovation Officers sit across a wide range of areas, and I'd like you to get your comment on in relation to what we were just discussing now in relation to security and how AI and other technologies can be utilized and for us to be aware of.
Thank you, Johnny. So I think it's key for us when we look at the metaverse. I think it gives us a significant opportunity, especially as we move forward in creating a new digital economy, creating a virtual employment and entrepreneurship opportunities, right? So when we look at the security aspects of the metaverse, I think a number of things comes into play. I do see the potential of AI really eliminating some of this, especially when it comes to utilization of specific areas where, removing of human error and so on coming into play. With the AI, with artificial intelligence being implemented across for security reasons, I think it really transcends the current structure, which is being faced by a lot of companies, right? But with that, the standards are still evolving, and that's a concern. The concern is the standards and interoperability is still a key problem which we are facing. But I do see that coming together as we move forward. I would also like to mention a couple of things around, what does it take to scale? And I think we spoke a little bit about form factors. I think that's going to be a key deciding factor, and cost. Because as an operator today, when we are looking at the metaverse, we do see challenges in that space because of the cost structure, and it really prevents mass adoption. So on one hand, we are trying to address the security concerns. The other hand is also to ensure scalability of the tech with regards to adoption. And I think that's going to be a key focus for us, at least in the near term. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Coogan. I think based on your comments, I think the role for GSMA, we have a lot more to do to actually facilitate. And I think Samantha, well, you'll have a lot more to do in relation to promoting and managing and guiding the security aspect in the metaverse, maybe moving forward. Okay. Great, fantastic. Look, yeah, it's okay. Thank you very much to all the speakers and the panelists. We've just run out of time, but this seminar has been recorded, so you can access this anytime you want. Probably from today. Before I finish off, I'd like to let you know that the next DXAF virtual seminar will be on the 13th of July. And this is something maybe, more people involved in strategy be interested. It will be in relation to the convergence of terrestrial and satellite networks towards 6G. So it's more on the side of the infrastructure and network side. So please keep that in the back of your mind. I will share that. And lastly, before I go, just so that everyone is aware, we will be, it's been confirmed, and you will, get some additional information, but GSMA APAC will be holding the Mobile 360 APAC event in Seoul, Korea on the 7th and 8th of September. And so we will be developing the agenda for the 2 days, or maybe 2 days plus maybe, and share that with you, which will cover definitely all areas of ICT, from the digital ecosystem right through to infrastructure. So please look forward to receiving that additional information. But once again, thank you very much for your participation. And should you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email myself or my colleagues. And I look forward to seeing you on the 17th of July. And of course, hopefully in APAC, GSMA Mobile 360 APAC in Seoul, Korea on the 7th and 8th of September. Thank you very much for your participation, ladies and gentlemen. Goodbye.
Thank you, and have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Johnny.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. See you.
Bye.